Hello.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm really good. What about you?
Great. I'm doing okay today.
That's awesome. Um, okay, so just for the recording, um,
hmm
I'm Juno. It's December 21st, 2020, and we're here to talk about Common Lives, Lesbian Lives. And if you could say your name and where you are currently located.
Sure. I'm Marcy Baderstcher and I live in Belmont, North Carolina.
Beautiful. I guess I'd love to start out with kind of how you got first involved with Common Lives.
hmm Well, this was 30 years ago, so I'll do my best to, remember everything correctly. But I was living in Davenport, Iowa. I was a student at Palmer College of Chiropractic. So, Common Lives was based in Iowa City. And so I came out when I was in school there, when I was 21, and there wasn't uh, a lot in Davenport, Iowa, for a young, um, lesbian just like coming out and kind of discovering things. But of course, Iowa City had the university and a much more uh, kind of just liberal and diverse community there, just from being a college town. And so I would spend some time there, and I actually don't remember. I don't know if it was like through a friend or an acquaintance, or if I saw like I have some kind of memory of seeing a flyer on a bulletin board with some information. And I was always interested in writing and just wanted to be involved in something. So I reached out to them, and it was really a volunteer organization, right? So I mean, as long as they had enough room for, I don't really, there was generally like, I think there was around 10 of us, 10 or 12 of us that were actively participating at the time. And
Mhm.
so, I think they were looking for people. And so I just volunteered and I became a poetry editor for them.
Yeah. And what did some of your duties entail, like being a poetry editor?
So because I didn't live in Iowa City, I didn't participate with like some of the other like layout and stuff that they would do like during the week. But I would drive once a week for a meeting, for basically an editorial meeting, and they would give us packets of content, of submissions, and so we had to read through everything and basically just we had poetry editors and prose editors. So I was a poetry editor, so I got all the poetry and read through it during the week, and just maybe jot down some thoughts, or whether we felt that we wanted to be submitted or not. And then we would have these editorial meetings, and we'd all just get together and sit around and say, okay, this one, what did you think, and what did you think, and we'd talk about it. And it was pretty much a collective decision, right? So if like I think there's about 5 or 6 of us poetry editors.
Mhm.
So if one person did not like it and did not want it printed, it generally was not printed. It had to
Oh,
be
really? It had to
like
be a consensus?
a consensus, yeah.
Mm.
And everybody, we would share opinions, and we would try to sway each other or whatever, or maybe give in on this one so you'd get that one, kind of like politics, I guess. But I think we just all wanted to pick the best ones, or pick the ones that we thought were strongest and that would appeal to readers, and we would just decide.
Mm. Did you like those meetings? Was that the only time you really saw those other people, or did it become like where you would be friends with them, or what was that sort of like community aspect of it?
Oh, well, for me, it was probably a little different because I didn't live in town, like I said, and I was in my last year and a half of chiropractic college. So, it was pretty intensive studies and responsibilities that I had to do. But there were different, different people of different ages in the groups. I was one of the younger people, I remember. but there were a couple of people also younger, um, and I was dating someone at the time. I was seeing somebody that lived in Iowa City, but she was not involved in the collective at all. Um, but we would socialize sometimes. There were a couple people that were also in the collective that I hung out with, outside. I
Mhm.
remember there was a group that played touch football, and then we would go like, one person would volunteer and cook like a giant pot of spaghetti or something, and then we'd all go hang out and eat.
Wow,
Um,
I love
but
that.
it wasn't like there were other members of the collective that, didn't participate in that. They were older
Mhm.
and, had different social lives. And there were sometimes we had a retreat once. So I remember one time we went, the group went to somebody's house and we all just kind of, did what you do at retreats. You bond a little bit more, you eat, you hang out together. You talk about like plans for the journal or ideas for the journal and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I remember in one of the notes to the readers in the beginning of the journal, they it spoke about the retreat. I wonder if it's the same one, but just about the time that it.
Probably.
Yeah.
Was there a picture? Do
I
you
can't
remember the picture?
remember, but it was right
We
around like the 40th anniversary. So I mean the 40th issue.
40th issue.
Mhm.
Yeah, we took a picture. So we went out on, I don't even remember whose house it was, but we went out on the balcony and we took a picture of all of us together. But some people felt more comfortable or less comfortable having their actual picture
Mhm.
published and associated with the journal. And so we took another picture where we all turned our backs to the camera and we were looking out into the woods and kind of like looking like this out into the future, and took another picture like that, and that picture is the one that was published
Ah,
of everyone's
okay.
backs.
I think I know. I'm remembering now. That's really great. Yeah.
Yes, I am
Um,
in that picture, so
one of those backs.
yeah.
Um, yeah, it's interesting how there definitely is like some contributors who only share like kind of an alias or maybe just their first name. And
Mm,
I think that's very telling, definitely.
yeah, I mean, we didn't have any requirements about that. You could submit anonymously, or just say like what you wanted printed or not printed.
Hmm.
So from what I remember, it was times weren't quite as open back then, but we tried to be sensitive to all that.
Hmm. Yeah, one of my favorite parts going through the issues are the bios. The bios of all of the contributors are really great. Yeah, and I know that there's different things that like they asked for the bios to include, but I don't know, do you have anything to say about the bios, I guess, or what you thought of them or how they had a big part in the journal?
Um, I do remember that, and I remember like I think for me as an editor, it probably did influence me in terms of um, like looking at someone who's submitting something, and like I was very interested in publishing things that were um, I don't want to say positive. It's not like, oh, I only wanted to, publish positive, happy things, but I had a real thing because I went to therapy around that age, to deal with like my family issues and stuff. So I had a real thing about codependency. And
Mm.
if if the poem or something felt to me like super codependent, like, oh my gosh, I'm nothing without you. Somebody writing about a breakup or some horrible thing where they're just like, you're my whole reason for everything. I would never like want it to be submitted. So
Mhm.
I think in the bios, like even I was looking for um, just people that kind of knew who they were. I think, or showed that maybe they knew who they were,
Yeah.
and had at least, everybody struggles, but had a more positive kind of feel about like being who they are,
Mm,
being lesbian, not having shame about being who they were.
yeah. Wow. So it really, I mean, whether you mean to or not, I guess with editing, like you did, it is so much of the personal and, your own feelings towards the pieces that come
Hmm.
out. That makes sense, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, especially in that environment, like nobody was, trained, and the journal really didn't have an agenda except to provide a space for voices and diverse voices. And I know we were fairly conscious about the diversity part, and just trying to include, of course, we included as many as we could. Um, but there was too many to publish. And I think just as a group, we all had our things that appealed to us, but first and foremost, like there were some, English majors or writing majors from the college. I think I remember one woman that was, and we were just kind of also looking for good writing,
Mm,
like just good, solid, just, writing that flowed and that, you know, said something, you know. So
yeah.
we got all kinds of stuff, but just like that, the first and foremost, even though we had different opinions and we had different angles and different things that appealed to us, it was just like good writing. Like this is a solid piece of writing.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, the diversity of the voices definitely feels like something that is super important to Common
Hmm.
Lives. I mean, even in the like mission statement or the concept of Common Lives, Lesbian Lives, which I have right here and I can read if you'd like, but also like it's
Sure.
just okay, okay. So Common Lives, Lesbian Lives seeks to document the experiences and thoughts of lesbians as we claim our past, name our present conditions, and envision our evolving futures. CLLL will reflect the complexity and the richness of those experiences and thoughts by describing the lives of ordinary lesbians, women who have always struggled to survive and create a culture for ourselves. The magazine is a forum for developing and clarifying our lesbian-defined social and political relationships. Common Lives, Lesbian Lives is committed to reflecting the diversity among us by actively soliciting and printing in each issue the work and ideas of lesbians of color, Jewish lesbians, fat lesbians, lesbians over 50 and under 20 years old, physically challenged lesbians, poor and working class lesbians, and lesbians of varying cultural backgrounds. CLLL feels a strong responsibility to ensure access to women whose lives have traditionally been denied visibility and to encourage lesbians who have never before thought of publishing to do so.
Yeah.
That is really amazing.
I think that was the part, like, well, there's a lot of parts, um, but just giving voice, right? And like, it's not easy to have things published. And, there are people that we published that were known, like somewhat known or had been published in other places, but that was not a criteria at all, like, it's like, oh, this person's been published. Yeah. Well, this person, this is a better piece, or this is a piece that's more, um, reflective of that mission, because like, right, giving everybody a voice. And that was the part, that I mean, I was published in it a couple times, so like anybody had a chance to be published. And I think it was definitely, um something we were all conscious of, you know
Yeah.
and I'm speaking for like a sliver of this, right? Like I was with him for about a year or so,
Mm-hmm.
and then I graduated school and I left the area. um, but obviously the life of the journal was, way more way longer than me. And another cool thing about it is that for volunteering, we were basically given a lifetime subscription.
Oh,
So,
right.
but I remember when it folded. It was only a couple years after I left, and getting my last issue and feeling pretty sad about that.
Yeah. Yeah. But the legacy is really like strong, and it's really very cool. So, um, yeah, I'm also wondering, like what was particularly memorable about, well, I mean, you've spoken on this already, but I guess just some more things about your work with the journal, if there was like other specific stories or things like that.
Yeah, it was when I heard from you, I was like, oh my God, like really, because I was like doing the math. I'm like, oh my God, that was 30 years ago, like in my life. And I was talking to my girlfriend about it. I told her the story because she didn't know this about me yet. It's like when you get this old, it takes you a while to tell somebody about your life, right? So I'm like, well, here's a story. And I was telling her about, my involvement and how you contacted me. And it really was kind of amazing to me. Like, I've never really been, like, back then, I knew that I was involved in something special. I knew that it was a special thing, right? Like, it was 19 1991, I think. I think that was the year of Roseanne's Kiss, like when things just started to like bust out a little bit for gay people, and things like Will and Grace started popping up on TV, and just Melissa Etheridge comes out, just all this stuff starting to happen, and I
Cultural.
realized that, yeah. So then I did know, well, this is a special thing, that is happening, that this journal does, and that particularly providing a voice for for women, um, to this day, who are still who are still fighting, to be represented. But I never could have imagined that 30 years later, somebody would like knock on my door and say, hey, we're actually interested in this thing that was around 30 years ago, and that ended, well, it would be like 28, 27, or 28 years ago, ended. um, I had no concept that something like that, like it was that important.
Mm,
And so that's been really it's been really great for me to see that, to realize this is happening now, people are recognizing this. And back then, like I said, I knew it was special, but I just didn't have any idea. um, but it was a really, like, also for me, and I was talking about this with my girlfriend, and we were just kind of, because I was trying to figure out like how I felt about this. I hadn't thought about it in so long. I'm like, wow, this is really something. And like I said to you, I had just come out a year and a half or so, 2 years before I got involved. And I was in the Midwest, right? I'm from the East Coast, but I was out there for school. And like I said, Davenport, Iowa. Oh, I'm a new lesbian. Like, there's like one gay bar and like the whole, and I mean, I'm not a big bar person. Bars aren't like a great place to learn about things culturally, but I was lucky enough to have a couple people in my life that at least influenced me to read.
mm,
So this is way back before you buy anything on the internet or there's any Amazon, right? So going to bookstores or discovering uh, a mail order women's bookstore where I like literally ordered a crate of books, right? So that I could read about lesbian culture,
mm,
like the history, and like, this is what I'm a part of. And so the journal, being involved in the journal at that time and that age, like was very formative. Again, didn't realize it then,
yeah.
but to my identity, or just reinforcing the positive part of my identity, and the fact that I was now a part of this whole culture and subculture, and the past of the culture and the present and the future.
Mm.
Like, I didn't realize it, but when I look back on it, like that, you know, I mean, you can just imagine, like, here's your choice: go to a bar, or work in a collective with, a bunch of women studying and learning, and looking at culture and bringing culture together and lifting up the culture of lesbians. It's like, oh my gosh, I was so lucky.
Yeah.
I was so lucky.
Yeah.
Um, so I just can't even, I'm still kind of thinking about it like, wow, I was really lucky, you know? So,
Yeah, it really is such a wonderful thing, I think.
mhm. Yeah.
And you never know what is going to be in the future, but
Mhm.
it's interesting that you say like it did feel special, and when you're describing it, I like it it's kind of moving to me because it does, and just to look back at it now and see how really special it is. It's
Mhm.
really wonderful.
I'm amazed and just sort of honored that, you are this very young person who is being, helped or influenced, or just like you said, moved by it. And I'm just so glad that it's still around, and you still have access to it, and people still have access to it, and that it's an alternative to, what you see on mainstream media, or what you see. I mean, at least you see stuff on mainstream media now, but as far as like what's food for the soul, it's a little bit better option to like look back at this history and
I agree. I
reminisce.
love to just be in the archive. That's my
Mhm.
favorite.
Yeah.
Um, and so we're like trying to maybe do as I mentioned, a issue on common lives. And so I'll definitely like um, kind of get in contact with you. But if you have any ideas for like writing pieces or things like that, I would love to like, work more if you're still interested in writing and stuff. That would be, really cool to have an editor maybe contribute to the issue that we're working on. We're still
Hmm.
like in the very early stages, as I told you, kind of trying to figure out, but we really love the idea of like the common lesbian and what that meant then and what it means now.
Hmm.
And I think that definitely like it says in the mission statement, like the it really common lives really was solidifying like the idea of just all the different common lesbian, just all of the different people you see and you might not know. And it's really, I
Hmm.
loved how it has such young contributors, like 17 or younger to like much older. And yeah, that's just a really important part of it to me.
Yeah. I do remember feeling that way as I would read the poetry, like, wow, this is like from so many different places, angles, people, ideas. Like, there was so many different, um like the poetry, like, prose is prose. Prose is a story. Prose has, beginning, middle, and an end. If it's a decent story, it has a structure. But poetry is just like whatever they put on the page. And to see those different types of emotional expression in the poetry, it's just like that human experience from all these different women. And I don't obviously remember um, a lot of the submissions, but I know there's still one that I remember for whatever reason, like the way it was written, it hit me. It was like a woman wrote a poem about being camping, like in a KOA, you know, traveling and camping, and being harassed by people. And she wrote it like how they can't, like she fought back,
Mhm.
like she was harassed and assaulted, and like how she fought back. And I was like, wow, like what a courageous story. And then I read the poem again and I realized, or I thought, I speculated that it's what she had wished that happened.
Wow.
Like it was like she was somehow writing to heal from a trauma that in her mind she was changing the story that actually happened and wrote it the way she wished it had happened. And
Wow.
that, and I don't, like, for whatever reason that stuck with me in a way that I still remember it like 30 years later.
Yeah, that's amazing. What do you and so was that poem published?
I think so. I,
I mean, it's
I'm sure I said, yeah, publish that for sure. I know I wanted it published, but I can't remember for sure.
Mhm. But wow, yeah, the fact that it stays with you. I I'm wondering the differences of being a poetry editor for them and a prose editor. Did you wanted to be a poetry editor? That's what you like chose to
My
do?
theory, yeah, my theory was because I was in school and I knew, well, there might be times where, I have finals or exams or whatever stuff going on. Poems are shorter than prose stories. So I can sit, like, instead of like, oh, I have to spend 15 minutes reading through this entire story right now, I can read three poems, in 15 minutes. Like, so I just remember thinking like it was really about that, um, not because I didn't like prose, but because I mean, I've written both, but I'm like, well, I was being practical, really.
That's good, yeah. Was there, like, a challenging part of being a prose editor that you found? I mean, a poetry editor?
Um, yeah, I think sometimes like just trying to, because like I said, poetry is more free form, right? Like maybe it doesn't have as much structure,
Mhm.
or and so just trying to like look at a poem that might be like, because I'm fairly, well, back then I was much more left brained, and I was like in school, studying all this like memorization stuff. And um okay, so this maybe is an odd structure, or I can't really necessarily figure it out, but does that mean it's bad?
Mhm.
Like, so for me it was like I tried to look at it that way and say, well, okay, here's good things, or it's just because maybe I don't get it doesn't mean that it's not good enough to publish. So I kind of had my, oh yes, I definitely, that one I'm going to fight for. This one I'm going to fight doesn't get in.
Mhm.
Or this one is like, I can wiggle on this, like I maybe don't get it, but I think there's some good things, and if other people like it, then yeah,
Mhm.
I'm not going to,
You kind
it's
of,
like
like,
I
had different yeah, the different levels of, like, extremely
different
agree.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like I said, you in a meeting, and you can only pick, I don't even remember how many we would pick per issue or every week, because we had multiple meetings for one issue. Um, there were some you weren't going to get, some you really liked that you just weren't going to get because everybody had to agree. And if you liked it and they didn't like it, sometimes you just let go.
Yeah. Did you, get to keep the poems, or would you, like, discard them?
I believe, I don't 100% remember. We didn't keep them.
Mhm.
They were like printed and we would get the manila envelope. But I think every submission actually went to the archive,
Mm.
even if we didn't print it. I don't think we just like trashed the stuff.
Yeah, I think I'm remembering now reading in one of the notes that it says that all submissions were archived.
Mhm.
Wow, that must
Yeah.
be really.
I mean, I don't know where, if they're still, I think it was the Lesbian Herstory Archive. But I
Mm,
don't know if there's, I mean, I have no idea, but I'm pretty sure we didn't just trash anything, but no, we didn't keep copies of, I didn't keep copies. I don't know if anyone else did.
mm-hmm. Yeah, and do you still have copies of the journal, Common Lives, Lesbian
I
Lives?
do not actually. I have moved numerous times. I created those books around for years. I did. But, you know, oh, the recession and downsizing and, you know,
Totally.
I had to get rid of them because I just, you know,
It's too much space. Yeah, it's just
yeah,
wondering.
yeah.
um Yeah, do you who else I another question was who else did you work with? Like do you remember any names or any specific like people?
First names:
Okay.
Judy, Susan, Kathy. Um, there may have been two Susans. Um, yeah, those are the only names. I don't think I remember anybody's last name. No.
Right. um well, yeah, wow. Um, I that's really all that I have to ask you, but I'd love to like hear if you have any more stories or things that really were special like to you in that time from it.
Um, I think just kind of what I said before, like it gave me it it gave me a community or a connection, right? Like again, coming out, I'm in chiropractic college. It's like male dominated. It's, I mean, I don't want to say like super conservative, but I mean, it's the middle of Iowa,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and in 1991, yeah. And so I, I basically met someone at school that, you know, we got to know each other, and she was a little older than me and maybe a lot. And, you know, so she kind of helped me come out. But then we split up, and I was like, I'm out here by myself, you know, and I don't really have connection or community. And so, like I mentioned, there was somebody from back home that I was acquainted with that pointed me to some books and things like that. But as far as people, I didn't have a lot of connection. So being involved in the collective really helped me have a sense of belonging and community to something bigger than myself.
Mm-hmm.
um, and just what everybody wants. They want to feel connected, and they want to feel like they belong somewhere. And so it was, and again, like I said, a very healthy and positive thing to become a part of or to connect to, as opposed to like a bar culture or some other thing that wasn't, you know, as positive and healthy. So I can't really, I was trying and trying to, you know, I was like, no, 30 years, it's okay that you don't remember because it was so long ago. And, you know, so much of that is just like that time is, I don't even practice chiropractic, you know, I don't, I'm not in touch with anybody really from that part of my life. That's just long ago. But reflecting back on it, just understanding, I appreciate that, you know, you reaching out to me has given me the opportunity to reflect on it and understand how important that was to just that time in my life, and helping, you know, form this really positive um, connection to being a lesbian, and so yeah, it was a good time.
Thank you. That's wonderful. I'm
Sure.
glad. Um, well, thank you so much for talking to me today.
Yeah,
I
sure.
really, I like gained a lot, and I'm really excited to kind of go over what we talked about and see everything. Yeah, I'll keep in touch about anything in the future, and if you have,
Okay.
any ideas, I'd love to hear from you as well. So, yeah,
Sure. Feel free to reach out anytime if I can be of any more help. I'm happy to participate, just like I was then. Who knows what this will be 30 years from now, right? So,
true. Yeah, you're really right.
so
Well, that's awesome. I hope you have a really great rest of your day.
thank you. You too.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
Bye.
Take care.
You too.
Bye.